Emanating from the wrestling capital of the world, Calgary, Dramatic Pond, Alberta, Canada, and broadcast to the world at www.stormwrestling.com and www.liveaudiowrestling.com. This is Storm Warning, your weekly audio check-in with Extreme Championship Wrestling superstar Lance Storm.
Hey Lance, congratulations. You worked this weekend. Good thing you brought your tights.
Well, yeah, it wasn't TV, so I'm allowed to work.
Yeah, I heard you had a good one with Raven this weekend.
Actually, I did, yeah. It was actually the first time we've actually had a single match against each other.
How'd it go?
It went really well. The crowd seemed to really respond well, and we worked pretty good together, so.
How's Raven been?
Actually, it was really funny after the big torch tirade between him and Paul. He was joking about it quite a bit this weekend. He actually had a printout of it off the internet that he was showing everyone.
Okay, so he's re-inspired?
I think so, yeah. I think he, it was just a miscue between him and Paul, and they both spent way too much time talking about it, and they just sort of want to put it behind them now.
And probably best for everyone involved. It's got him back with the program.
Yeah, perhaps. Maybe that was the intent.
Could be. Hey, looks like everything with Sabu is still up in the air. Have you heard anything recently?
I've heard WCW seems to be washing their hands of the whole situation. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know where Paul stands on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect to see him this weekend, though, so who knows?
Would he be welcome back in the ECW locker room?
I think the boys would, because I don't think any of the boys hold anything against him. When the guy has put his body through as much as he has, I think everyone's pretty much willing to let him, do whatever he has to make the money he can.
Mm-hmm.
But, it certainly was a bad business move, and I think, more heat would be with Paul than with the boys.
Right. Another couple that was invited to join the ranks of World Championship Wrestling and then asked to leave, Chris Candido and Tammy Lynn. What have you heard?
Just that, after the Sabu fiasco that, Bush wanted to see a written release, and they couldn't produce one, so they were told to go home. And so I guess I haven't got one from Paul, which is, kind of silly. If, he fired them like he claims he did, then he should give them the paper so they can work elsewhere.
Yeah, wasn't that a shock? Now, that caught me right off guard, that they still were under contract to ECW, even though they weren't getting paid. How's it a contract if you're not getting paid?
Yeah, I don't know, I guess maybe they never considered it all that binding of agreement in the first place, so when, Paul said you're fired or whatever, if he in fact ever even did that, who knows,
mm-hmm.
or they, when they left, that they just assumed that they would, mutually agree to rip him up and never worried about it, and obviously Paul didn't rip it up. I don't know.
Speaking of Chris Candido, he did an interview with the Pro Wrestling Torch on the weekend with Jason Powell, and talked about you a little bit here. He was asked point blank, Lance Storm, and Candido said, "We were really close. I was the one who pushed Paul to give him a chance. When we were doing the tag team that doesn't get along gimmick, I thought we had a blast and worked really well together and against each other. But in the locker room, the last go around, we really didn't seem to be comfortable around each other we didn't seem to be comfortable around each other for reasons I don't really understand." What does that mean?
Actually, it's funny. I just read it, I think, the other night, and it actually made me sad when I was reading it, because we were really, really tight. I've probably wrestled Chris more than I've wrestled anybody else in the business. Always had fun with him in the ring, but his last go-round, I don't know, I think we just, have gone separate ways, and we've sort of, sort of grown apart a little bit, and it was a little bit uncomfortable near the end. We just, just didn't seem eye to eye and be as friends as we used to, which is a shame, because we did have a ton of fun together.
Did you, consciously stay away from each other?
No, it wasn't really a conscious thing. I don't know. I felt a bit of tension between Tammy and myself, and then felt a little more uncomfortable around Chris because of it, I think, and I don't know, we just didn't see eye to eye anymore, and, we still... we still put up the front, the friendliness and everything else, and, still worked great together, but we just weren't as genuinely friendly and, as eager to hang out as we used to be, I guess.
Was there any heat stemming from your shoot comments on Tammy on TNN?
No. I certainly wouldn't think so. All the time we did that gimmick, Chris and I always had, cleared stuff with each other ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Never took anything, beyond what it was in the ring to try to get reactions and stuff. It got to the point where I think, we both sort of had fun trying to top one another,
right,
as far as hitting something. But I never said anything about Tammy that I didn't clear ahead of time.
So she was cool with the whole thing?
Yeah, she was professional the whole time.
Speaking of unprofessional, the Torch comments this past weekend. The Torch rundown of the ECW locker room. I understand some guys are hot about...
Good choice of words, the rundown.
The rundown of, the ECW locker room. I understand some guys are hot about Wade's comments?
Yeah, a few people were pretty hot, and I think understandably. It's like, I think he went a little bit beyond constructive criticism.
Mm-hmm. What did he say?
The one that stuck out in my mind, he ripped Nova pretty hard, and granted, I have made statements, similarly, but I think, you can make them a little bit more constructive than that. Danny Doring, I think he said, was a total jabroni look, Bush League, something along those lines, which is, pretty harsh.
Oof.
I think you could, say if you don't like his look, say that, he doesn't have that, that look that the big two are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But to say that he's just a jabroni Bush League guy, I think is, pretty harsh.
So the torch was going around the locker room in the weekend?
Yeah, I don't remember who brought it in, but he had the one, and I started reading a few of them and started laughing at a few, and then others, it's like, wow, that was stiff.
Anyone staple it up on the wall?
No, it just got handed around and stuff in everybody's different bags. Everybody trying to read what someone had to say.
Right. Mike Awesome was on the Law this weekend, and we were talking about your comments and your commentary last week about how guys need to pull together to make this promotion work now that guys are either limping or leaving. And he said, you know what, it doesn't seem to be that way. It seems that, guys aren't pulling together. Is that true?
I suppose it just depends on your perspective. I think a lot of the problem is Paul isn't in the locker room every night anymore, which leaves people to, sort of sit with their own little groups and not really have as much of a central focus. I think we need Paul, or we need more of a locker room leadership as far as somebody who is in charge that can sort of, focus the troops, so to speak. Paul wasn't in at all last weekend, which I think hurts because it just gets a little bit more disorganized without, the boss there to organize things.
So when Paul's not there, who leads?
Tommy Dreamer, for the most part.
Right.
He's the one that puts the card together, and either over the cell phone or by himself, I don't know which, but he oversees things and gets things done. But it gets busy for him to try to do that, and I don't think everyone sees him as the unified leader as much as they do Paul. So it helps to have him around. He hasn't been around as much.
What's the injury status of guys in the locker room right now? What's up with Jerry Lynn, Tajiri, etc.?
Jerry, it's sort of like a week-to-week thing right now. He's hoping to be back for the pay-per-view. He's not 100% sure yet. I haven't talked to him this week to see how he's progressing. Rob's obviously out for a while. New Jack keeps trudging through, so.
He's still doing it, eh?
Yeah, he's a tough guy.
What a trooper. How about everyone else? Anyone else limping, or is that one pretty cool?
I think everyone else is pretty good. Actually, Justin, I don't think people know this or not, but he has a bruised kidney.
Ouch.
Yeah, he took one of the bumps he took in his match with Raven in Tallahassee. It was his lower back was bothering him. I told him to have it looked at because he's got a bit of a history for having a soft head. So I suggested perhaps by overprotecting his head, he's taken more impact on his lower back than he should. And he looked into it, and he actually has a bruised kidney. So he's hurting, but still, just something you can just work through. Like even the doctor said, there's not really much you can do. You just have to put up with it. So.
Do you think guys are being extra safe now when they're doing house shows leading up to the pay-per-view?
I didn't see any evidence of that this past weekend. Guys are still working hard.
Good but dangerous, I guess. I don't know what to say about that.
Well, I think, too, and a lot of people make this mistake. It's like if you try to be cautious, you're more apt to get hurt.
Yeah.
It's like, if you have to take a backdrop, it's like if you try to take sort of a half-ass one to protect yourself, you're going to end up landing wrong.
Right.
You have to just relax and do things the way you always do, or you will get hurt.
By the time this goes to air, the Hardcore Revolution video game by Acclaim will have been released. Have you had a look at it yet?
I haven't. I've seen all the promotional stuff. I've seen some QuickTime stuff on the computer, and I've seen all the video production, but I haven't had an actual chance to play the game yet.
Have you talked to anyone who has?
Yeah, a lot of the guys in the New York area have been down to the studio and played it, and said it's just amazing. They said it was just so much fun, and like I've seen the characters and stuff, and the resemblance is just really, really good.
Have you seen yourself yet?
I did. Wasn't as happy. I find that the bigger, heavier guys look more realistic than the in-shape guys.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know whether it's because, with clothes and so forth, you can emulate better than you can just an actual build on them. My character has no ass whatsoever, so I kind of think it was funny.
Moving right along, looks like Jado and Gato are on their way finally.
Yeah, I've heard they're going to be in for 3 weeks. I don't know if they're working all 3 weeks or not, but apparently they're going to be in the country for 3, so I'm hoping we can use them for perhaps all 3.
Is it just going to be to work with you guys? Are you going to spread them out between Doring and Roadkill?
I don't know. I'd like to steal them the whole time. I think it'd be good for the other guys to have a chance to work with them, though.
Right.
I'm pretty sure we're going to work with them in Asbury Park, New Jersey. The arena for sure, because it's been advertised for a while. And if that goes well, I'm going to push to get him on the pay-per-view, too.
Has Justin worked with those guys yet?
No, he hasn't.
So it's going to be exciting for him.
Yeah, he's looking forward to it. He's worked with a few of the different Japanese guys, like Hamada when he was in, Sasuke, and he likes working with Tanaka as well. So he should have fun with Jado and Gato.
Another Japanese guy on his way. Looks like Kentaro Kanemura coming back for another go at it.
Oh, good.
More chair shots, more
chair shots and barbed wire. God bless him. He can do it instead of me.
What would we do without FMW?
Yeah, no kidding.
The Living Dangerously pay-per-view on the horizon. Rumors now that the main event's going to be a three-way between Mike Awesome, Masato Tanaka, and Spike Dudley. What have you heard?
Well, it's interesting that's a rumor already. I think it was actually an idea that I had thrown at Paul last week, just sort of out of the blue. What do you think of that? And he said, "Oh, gee, that's a good idea, actually." And that's as far as it had gotten from that point. And then I mentioned to Mike, because Mike was sort of asking this past weekend, is it going to be me and Tanaka again? And I said, well, I had suggested a three-way, and Paul seemed to like it. And he says, oh, I'd love to do that. So I don't know if there's any actual solid plans or not, but Mike likes the idea, and I think Paul's thinking it might be a good plan too. So there's a good chance it could happen.
But now that it's hit the internet?
Yeah, Paul will probably change it now. No, they know about it. We got to switch it.
This could be good. You could be involved in the main event now.
Yeah, who knows what they're going to do.
And speaking of who knows what they're going to do, let's talk about the TV title. What's going on with Rob's television title?
I still haven't heard a definite. I still have a funny feeling that they're going to strip him of it and do a tournament of some kind. And if we do, I really hope we put one out and show other wrestling companies that you can do a tournament that means something.
Right.
By actually putting like top end guys against top end guys and just make the matches do jobs and just put out a good tournament that means something instead of putting absolute nobodies with your top guys so that you don't have to have a guy do a job.
I think the key for that is to make the first round look as compelling as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Make the first round matches that would actually be pay-per-view matches to begin with,
right?
Even if they weren't in a tournament. That way, there's some major heat and some major interest.
Absolutely. Let's shift gears and talk about World Championship Wrestling. Geez, we could do an hour and a half on these guys.
I guess we'd be shifting down in gears.
Hulk Hogan, always controversial gentleman from World Championship Wrestling, commenting about Billy Kidman this past week on a radio show in Florida, saying Kidman could not headline a flea market.
Wow.
Comments about Hogan, Lance.
Well, I think that's a bit of a stiff statement, and I think it goes back to he was the man when it was the big huge monsters. Everybody was 7 feet tall or bigger, and I think just because that was his heyday and that was when he was around, that he still believes that anybody that small just can't be taken seriously. And I don't think he realizes how much the sport is changing. I think when Hogan was on top, I remember when the Rockers first hit the WWF, there was all the wrestling magazines, are they too small for the World Wrestling Federation? And they were just a tag team at the time. And then Shawn was the man at probably a natural body weight of around maybe 200 pounds.
Right.
And he headlined at every show there was. So I think to say Kidman couldn't headline a flea market is ridiculous. I think if the proper emphasis and push was put around him by a company, the guy could I don't know if he should be headlining the main event of WrestleMania, but he can be a key part of it.
I think one day he could be there.
Well, the possibility is there. I don't know whether he will or not, but to say that it's impossible and he could never do it and he should be working flea markets is a bit stiff.
The best part about this is once WCW caught wind of what he said, I guess they had a talk with Hogan, and Hogan started backpedaling and said, "Oh, I'm just this is just part of a big angle I'm doing, just part of a big angle."
Well, that's it with with the shape WCW is in right now. I think everybody in the company should be saying positive things about the rest of the company.
Yeah.
You've got guys flocking away in droves, and you've got one guy like Kidman who's actually staying. Let's try not to belittle him too much.
He was ready to leave too, and he chose to stay as this key piece of young talent.
Well, that's it. I think Kidman realized that how young he is and the amount of money he's making. He could do worse, and you've got a guy that young who seemingly is willing to put up with the disarray that's there now. If you get things organized and back on focus, he could be an important part of your group, and you shouldn't have people in your company saying he's completely worthless.
Absolutely. Something you wanted to comment on this week. This comes from the tip sheet from the Post-Dispatch by a gentleman by the name of Jeff Gordon, commenting on Vince McMahon and the XFL. Hide the children. Vince McMahon, the mastermind behind the World Wrestling Federation, is threatening to start a professional football league. He goes on to give a brief description of it and then starts to mock it by saying it'll be quarterbacks wearing bras, soap opera storylines featuring wife stealing and worse, and then in maybe one of the most tasteless things I've ever read, he said, players plunging from the rafters to their deaths during aerial pregame introductions. Sure, Vince, sure.
This is, I had a fan send me this. He emailed it to me at my website, and it's like I just couldn't believe it. It was just so ignorant. If you want to bash Vince McMahon, go ahead. But there's a family out there that lost a big part of it in an accident at work, and Owen Hart died, and this guy's using it as a butt of a joke. And I just can't think of anything more ignorant. And even just his comments on the whole football thing is ignorant because Disney owns a lot of different operations other than Mickey Mouse and Disney World.
Right.
And Vince McMahon has the right to do the same. If you want to knock Vince, go ahead, but try to give it at least a little bit of credence and, leave Owen Hart out of it.
Speaking of Owen Hart, what's the feeling about the Hart family? You live in Calgary. What's the feeling about the Harts these days?
I really haven't, lately I've been so out of touch. I have no free time whatsoever. I think, everybody in Calgary misses Owen. He was, all the bios and stuff you hear on him being just a great guy. Everybody felt that way, and they just really, really miss him, and it was just a real loss for the city. And I think it's just something that they'll just never ever get over.
Do you ever get a chance to watch Stampede?
I have not seen it since it's been back on. I keep meaning to set my VCR and tape it Saturday afternoons, but I haven't had the chance.
Right. Have you had a chance to watch your own show lately?
I catch it on video. I usually half the time sit there with the fast forward button just trying to skip through it real quick just so I can keep up to date on, who's doing what, so I can help out on the booking end if I have to.
Yeah, how much wrestling do you watch a week?
Not very much. I probably catch about a half of a Raw show, usually, and then our show, and that's about it.
Who's doing it for you these days?
Not that many people, actually. I caught Benoit and The Rock this week, and I didn't think it was all that great. I didn't think they worked all that well together. I don't know. I really enjoy watching Justin's stuff.
Right.
I'd enjoy watching my stuff if there was any on TV. Paul's gonna hate me, but I don't care. I thought Dreamer and Mikey was really good this week, too.
That was an excellent match, yeah.
It was really good.
That was terrific. Yeah, I guess Mikey's more important than ever now.
Yeah, which is nice, because the guy's worked so hard for so long. He really put his body into this company a while back, and just because he tried to make a living somewhere else for a while, I don't think we should hold it against him.
I'm glad they're giving him a character, or letting him create a character rather. It's really he's really clicking because his in-ring work is solid, and it's just beyond reproach.
Yeah, and he's really easy to work with too, which is good.
Yeah. Let's get to some email questions. This one comes in from Tyler. Lance, who has been the most influential person you have met in the wrestling business, and who do you feel most comfortable with in the ring, and maybe most uncomfortable?
Most comfortable probably Jerry Lynn, just because I've worked him so much lately, and he's just so easy. It's you can't have a bad match with Jerry, and you don't, you can go out there and have like what looks like a ridiculously hard worked match, and you come back to the locker room and you're still relaxed. Influential, I don't know if he means who was most influential to me or just who was the most influential person in the business that I've met. Probably the most influential to me was actually Jerry Morrow.
Really?
From the Stampede days. Yeah, he's the guy that taught me ring psychology. He really clued me into, this being more than just a bunch of high spots for no apparent reason. He was a guy that taught me the whole sense, as far as ring psychology, the way a match should lay out. And he's really, ideal in just breaking it down to its simplest form.
Right.
And he just taught me so much.
You mentioned ring psychology. This comes in from Damien4191 at AOL.com. Sometimes I hear people talk about good in-ring psychology. What exactly does psychology have to do with wrestling?
It's just really referring to, having a match that makes sense. It's one of those things that if you're not actually in the business, you don't really understand it. But it's like when you watch a Bret Hart match, and it really makes sense, and you're into it the entire way, you don't really understand why it's perhaps more entertaining than a Taka Michinoku match. It's because Taka does high spots, Bret has ring psychology. It's like if you put a guy in a figure four for 5 minutes, you don't pick him up, shoot him off the ropes, and do leapfrog spots. It's like, well, he had a bad leg a minute ago, why is he running now?
Right.
Or if the guy takes a turnbuckle and nails his shoulder into the post, it's like, well, don't pull him out and start kicking him in the foot. It's just stuff like that just adds credibility to matches. The WrestleMania 10 match that Bret and Owen had. It's like when you watch that thing, it's like every move they did, they looked like they were legitimately fighting through everything and trying to get stuff on, and it just looked more real, more believable. You suspend your disbelief or whatever and really get into the match, and that's because they've got good ring psychology.
When you're wrestling, how aware are you of the crowd? I mean, there's like two things I guess you got to be paying attention to, or probably more than two: what your opponent's doing, what you're doing, and how the crowd is reacting. How aware are you of what the crowd's feeling?
I'm pretty good with the crowd. I was more. It's just starting to get back to it now, but as a babyface, I was really good at listening to the crowd and telling sort of when you needed to make comebacks and when you needed to do different things. And I'm starting to get more comfortable with that as a heel now. I think that's the biggest part, and is a big part on knowing how far you have to go in different ways. It's like Jerry and I were working quite a bit, and we had a vague sort of semblance of a match that we would stray not too far from most of the times. And there's some nights, I remember one in Pittsburgh, where they just weren't getting into it. You could tell that the crowd, had either seen too much already on the card or they just weren't into this.
Right. And
so we had to step it up a notch. You pull out a table or a chair or whatever, or get out into the crowd, do what you have to do. because, you know, ideally the fans are who you're trying to entertain, and if the crowd, you know, isn't reacting at all, then you're doing something wrong. You know, a lot of guys, it's like, you know, this is a spot they want to do, and they're just going to do it, and if the crowd's not reacting, then you should do something else.
Right. Who do you hate coming out after?
Balls Mahoney.
Yeah.
Because there's blood and thumbtacks and debris and everything else out there you have to deal with.
Oh, you mean like in the ring physically?
Yeah. Who did you mean?
No, I mean like who do you, I mean, if you're say you're second from the top, I mean, who do you not want to be third, because you just know that person is going to just try to get everything they can into the match and not leave, you know, very much, you know.
That never ever bothers me, actually.
No?
No, I honestly think that regardless of what a fan gives them, I can go out there and wrestle and still do it differently and get it across. I remember one match, it was actually, I'm trying to think, it was a WCW show way back. The Steiners, when they were like super hot and like the best tag team going, fought Sting and Luger, and actually had like a match of the year caliber match. I think Luger was on the apron a lot. And it was just phenomenal. I remember when the match ended, I said, God, how are they going to follow this? And they sent out Bobby Eaton and Arn Anderson.
Oh, yeah.
And they went out there and they wrestled and they totally followed it. And I believe that, you know, if you go out there and do tables and chairs and blood and violence or whatever, I can still follow it by doing something different.
Is that the key? You got to do something totally opposite?
Yeah, you either have to top it, which, you know, I'm not going to top a Balls Mahoney chair shot or a Sabu, you know, diving through tables, because I'm just, you know, not willing or not able to do that.
Right.
So you've got to go a different route and give them something they haven't seen yet tonight. And I think good quality, smooth wrestling sometimes is something you don't see every night. So
A follow-up here to the previous email from Tyler. He asks, who would you want to wrestle in your last ever wrestling match?
Ooh, geez, I'd like to think that's far enough down the road that I haven't met the guy yet.
Maybe Tyler himself.
Yeah, who knows? Hopefully it'll be far enough down the road that it'll be a younger kid that's really showing promise, and I can, you know, pass the torch and get out and go.
How about this one? Lance Storm, you have $3 million to do one more match. We're going to give you $3 million. You can pick your opponent. You'll never have to wrestle again. Who's that person?
Bret Hart.
Yeah.
I would really like to wrestle Bret before I retire.
Just for
or I guess more real before he retires, but.
Right. Yeah. Have you heard anything about Bret?
I heard he did an appearance.
In Germany, yeah.
Yeah, so at least he's able to fly and get back on the road. So I would imagine he'll be back soon.
Actually, he said he wants to hang him up in Germany.
Really?
Yeah. He did a speech on Saturday. Where were they on Saturday? I don't know which town they're in, but somewhere in Germany. He gave a big speech saying how when he retires, he wants to retire in Germany.
It's a fun place to work. I've worked there a lot before, and it's really, really good crowds.
Yeah, what are they like there?
They're just really, really good wrestling fans. They were just, you know, like especially when I was there where Otto was, we were wrestling in the same town every single night. And it was fans that come out 60 straight nights to the same building.
Really?
Yeah, and they were really, really responsive, really, really easy crowd to be with.
What kind of fans are they? Are they like traditional wrestling fans, or like smart marks? What kind of fans are they?
More traditional wrestling fans. Although it was a few years since I've been there, they may have, you know, changed a little bit more. But they had been, you know, brought up more old school and enjoyed a lot slower, more legitimate wrestling style. You know, they still pop for the big crazy stuff, but they enjoyed good wrestling when I was there too. So I could see Bret enjoying the crowd over there and maybe wanting to hang it up there.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was just his attempt at getting over really huge as a babyface at the time.
Without getting in the ring, without putting on the trunks.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe he's in Japan next week. You'll say he wants to hang it up there too. You never know.
Oh, I don't think so. TNN show this weekend. What's up? I'm guessing Awesome and Tanaka.
Yeah, I would imagine so. That was definitely the next big highlight from that taping. So I think you'd have to put Awesome and Tanaka out there.
And this week you guys are on the road. You're in Wisconsin. You got La Crosse on Friday and then Milwaukee on Saturday?
Yeah, and I heard the Milwaukee tickets are selling like hotcakes, so it should be a good TV.
Oh, it's for TV this week. You guys going to do two as well?
I think they're just doing the 1 week in Milwaukee, because then the following week we're doing a week of TV in Cincinnati. So.
Oh, cool. All right, man. Best of luck on Off the Record, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks a lot.